The old ship floated silently in space, its gray hull reflecting the distant starlight. Most people called the U.S. Steadfast a piece of junk, but Captain James Walker saw something different when he looked at his command. The ship might be 30 years old, but there was beauty in its unusual design. The way its hull curved unlike modern vessels, how its old-style engine glowed with a soft blue light instead of the sharp white of newer ships. Walker stood on the bridge, watching his crew work at their stations. They weren't the best in the fleet. No one assigned their top people to an outdated training vessel, but they were his crew, and they worked hard. Some were old veterans like him, ones who couldn't get better posts. Others were fresh faces, young officers using this posting as their first step towards something bigger. "Captain, engineering reports the weekly power core tests are complete," said Tom Miller, his first officer. Miller was young, but he had a good head on his shoulders. Unlike most junior officers, he didn't look down on the Steadfast. Walker nodded, checking the readings on his screen. "How did the numbers look this time?" "Better than expected, sir. Engineer Roberts says the core is running at 95% efficiency. That's impossible for a ship this old, but she swears the readings are correct." This made Walker smile. The Steadfast Power Core was special, part of an experimental program that the military had abandoned years ago. Modern ships used cores that were smaller, lighter, and supposedly more efficient. But Walker had studied the old designs. They weren't inefficient. They were just built for a different purpose. "Tell Roberts to keep monitoring those readings. I want to know if anything changes." Walker turned his attention to the main viewport, watching as a modern patrol ship passed by. The newer vessel was sleek and powerful, with weapons that could hit targets at twice the range of the Steadfast's old guns. But Walker knew something that most people had forgotten. Sometimes the old ways had advantages that weren't obvious at first glance. The bridge crew worked quietly, running through their normal training exercises. They were practicing basic maneuvers today, the kind of things that would bore crews on more advanced ships. But Walker had added his own twists to the exercises, making his crew think about problems differently. "Sir," called out Lucy Green from the sensor station, "I'm picking up some unusual readings from the shield harmonics during our turns." Walker walked over to her station, looking at the data. Most captains would ignore such small variations. Modern shields were meant to be stable and consistent. But the Steadfast's old shield system worked differently. It could change and adapt in ways that newer designs couldn't match. "Record those readings," he told Green. "I want to study them later." He had been collecting data like this for months, building a picture of what his ship could really do. The military thought ships like the Steadfast were too power-hungry, their systems too demanding to be useful. But Walker saw patterns in the data that told a different story. The day continued with more exercises. Walker watched as his crew practiced emergency procedures, power management, and basic combat drills. They weren't as fast as crews on modern ships, but they were thorough. They understood their ship's systems instead of relying on automatic controls to do everything. During the lunch break, Walker sat in his office, studying old technical manuals. The Steadfast was part of the Guardian-class experimental program, ships built to test new ideas about space combat. The program had been canceled when newer, supposedly better designs came along. But Walker had spent years piecing together why these ships had been built this way. The power core's massive size wasn't just inefficiency. It was built to handle energy in ways that modern cores couldn't match. The shield system's high power demand came from its ability to change frequency and strength in ways that newer shields had abandoned as unnecessary. Even the hull's unusual shape had a purpose, though Walker was still working to understand exactly what it was. A knock at his door interrupted his studies. "Enter," he called out, and Chief Engineer Roberts walked in. She was an older woman who had served on Guardian-class ships when they were new. "Captain, I've been looking at those power readings you asked about," she said, putting a datapad on his desk. "There's something strange happening when we run the shield harmonics at full power. The core isn't just handling it. It's becoming more efficient. That shouldn't be possible. Walker picked up the pad, looking at the numbers. The old designers knew what they were doing, Mary. They built these ships to handle things that modern ships can't do. We just need to figure out what those things are. Roberts nodded slowly. Most of the fleet thinks we're just a floating museum piece. But you got ideas about this ship, don't you, sir? I do, Walker admitted. The Guardian program was canceled before they finished testing everything these ships could do. I think they gave up too soon. There's something special about the Steadfast. We just need to prove it. The afternoon shift brought more routine tasks. Walker had his crew practice power management drills, teaching them how to handle the core's massive energy output. Modern ships had automated systems for this, but the Steadfast required manual control. It was harder work, but it meant his crew truly understood how their ship worked. As the day shift ended, Walker stood at the viewport again, watching the stars. Tomorrow they would patrol the quiet sectors of space where nothing ever happened. The fleet kept the Steadfast away from any real action, thinking it was too old and weak to be useful. But Walker knew better. His ship wasn't weak, it was different. And sometimes, being different was exactly what you needed. He thought about all the data he had collected, all the patterns he had noticed. The way the shield harmonics changed during turns, how the power core became more efficient under high loads. The unusual ways the hull dispersed energy. Alone, each thing seemed like a quirk or a flaw. But together, they painted a picture of a ship that could do things its designers might never have imagined. Someday, he whispered to himself, everyone will understand what you can really do. He patted the wall of his ship gently, feeling the slight vibration of its systems through his hand. The Steadfast might be old, but age didn't always mean weakness. Sometimes, it meant having secrets that the young had forgotten. The night shift crew began arriving, taking their stations. Walker gave them their orders for the night. More exercises, more data collection, more learning about their ship's true capabilities. As he headed to his quarters, he thought about all the modern ships out there, with their crews who relied on computers to do their thinking for them. They might be faster and more powerful, but they had forgotten something important. The best weapons weren't always the newest ones. Sometimes, the best weapons were the ones that everyone else had forgotten about. In his quarters, Walker added the day's data to his private files. Another piece of the puzzle. Another step toward understanding what the Steadfast could really do. Someday, they would need ships that could do more than just follow standard tactics. When that day came, Walker would be ready. His outdated, underestimated ship would show everyone that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. He just hoped they would figure it out before it was too late. The emergency alert woke Walker in the middle of the night. Red lights flashed through his quarters as he quickly put on his uniform. When he reached the bridge, his crew was already at their stations, faces tight with worry. "Report," Walker ordered, taking his seat. Tom Miller turned from his console, his face pale. "Sir, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from Fleet Command. Long-range sensors have detected a massive force entering human space. It's the Meridian Compact." Walker felt his stomach tighten. Everyone knew about the Meridian Compact, an alliance of alien species known for their advanced technology and aggressive expansion. Until now, they had stayed away from human territory, but there had always been rumors that they saw humanity as a threat. "Show me," Walker said. The main screen lit up with sensor data. Even from a distance, the numbers were frightening. Hundreds of ships, all of them more advanced than anything in Earth's fleet. Their energy readings were off the charts. "Orders from command, sir," Lucy Green called from communications. "All ships are to fall back to defensive positions. The Steadfast is ordered to begin evacuating civilian outposts in Sector 7. Walker nodded slowly. Of course they wouldn't want his old ship in the fight. The Steadfast was considered too weak, too outdated to face modern warships. But something about the sensor readings caught his eye. "Ms. Green, zoom in on the enemy fleet's energy signatures." Walker studied the patterns carefully. There was something familiar about them. something that reminded him of his research into the Steadfast's systems. The next few days were a blur of activity. The Steadfast moved from outpost to outpost, loading civilians onto emergency transports. Walker's crew worked tirelessly, helping families pack what they could carry and comforting children who didn't understand why they had to leave their homes. Between evacuations, Walker spent every spare moment studying the data they collected about the Compact's fleet. Their ships used energy in ways that seemed impossible, weapons that could tear through modern shields, engines that moved faster than anything humans had built. But the more he looked, the more he saw patterns that connected to his research about the Steadfast's old systems. Captain, Engineer Roberts called him to engineering one evening. "I've been looking at the Compact's shield frequencies. They're using modulation patterns that are similar to what our old system can do, just more advanced." Walker leaned over the engineering console, excitement building in his chest. "Show me the comparisons." Roberts pulled up two displays, one showing the Steadfast's shield harmonics, the other showing the Compact's patterns. They weren't identical, but the basic principles were the same. The Guardian program had been developing something similar 30 years ago, before it was canceled. "Their technology works on the same principles we were exploring," Walker said quietly. "But they took it further than we did. They perfected it while we abandoned it for simpler designs." As they continued their evacuation mission, more reports came in about the Compact's advance. Earth's modern ships were failing against the alien technology. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the Compact's shields. Their own shields collapsed under the alien weapons. Everything that made Earth's fleet modern and efficient was proving useless against the invaders. During one evacuation, Walker found something interesting. The outpost they were clearing had an old research station, and in its databases, he discovered files from the Guardian program that he had never seen before. The station's computers were so old that they had been forgotten during system updates, leaving these files untouched for decades. "Look at this," he showed Miller and Roberts in his office. The Guardian ships weren't just experiments. They were built based on theories about advanced alien technology. The designers thought that simple, brute force systems might work better against highly advanced enemies than our modern, refined technology. Miller looked confused. "But why would older technology work better?" "Because it's not about being old or new," Walker explained. "It's about using power differently. Modern ships try to be efficient, using just enough power for each task. But the Steadfast systems are built to handle massive energy loads. They're not efficient, but they're incredibly adaptable." The evidence was in the Compact's own ships. Their advanced technology used principles similar to what the Guardian program had been exploring. But where the Compact had refined and perfected these systems, the Steadfast's crude, powerful approach might actually be more flexible. More bad news arrived with each passing day. The Compact was pushing deeper into human space, and Earth's fleet was taking heavy losses. Modern ships fought bravely, but couldn't stand against the alien technology. The Steadfast continued its evacuation duties, moving further from the front lines as the situation grew worse. Walker kept gathering data, testing his theories in small ways during their flights between outposts. He pushed the power core harder than usual, tested shield configurations that no modern ship would try. The results supported his ideas. The Steadfast systems could do things that shouldn't be possible according to modern military doctrine. "Sir," Miller caught him after a late shift. "The crew's been talking. They know you're working on something. They've seen how you're testing the ship's systems, studying the Compact's technology. They want to help." Walker looked at his first officer for a long moment. Everything he had learned told him that the Steadfast might be able to fight the Compact effectively, but attempting it would mean risking his crew, his ship, and his career. The safe choice was to follow orders and stay away from the fighting. But then another message came through. The Compact had reached New Haven, humanity's largest colony world. Earth's fleet was gathering for one last stand, but everyone knew it would probably fail. Modern ships just couldn't compete with the alien technology. Walker stood on his bridge, watching the stars through the viewport. His crew waited quietly, knowing that their captain was making a difficult decision. They had evacuated their last outpost. New orders would come soon, probably telling them to retreat even further from the fighting. But Walker had made up his mind. The Steadfast might be old, but it wasn't weak. Its outdated systems, which everyone thought were too crude and power-hungry to be useful, might be exactly what humanity needed. The ship no one feared might be the only one that could stand against the Compact's advanced technology. "Plot a course for New Haven," he ordered. "It's time to show everyone what this old ship can really do." His crew straightened in their seats, ready to face whatever came next. They had spent months learning their ship's true capabilities. Now they would put that knowledge to the test, proving that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Steadfast's engines glowed brighter than usual as they turned toward New Haven. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The ship that everyone thought was too old and weak to fight was about to show the galaxy that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. The Steadfast raced through space toward New Haven, its old engines pushing harder than they had in years. In engineering, Mary Roberts worked with her team to implement Walker's ideas. They weren't just breaking the rules of modern ship design, they were rewriting them. "Divert power from the secondary systems," Roberts ordered, her hands moving across the control panel. "Route everything through the main core." Modern ships would never do this. It was too dangerous, too wasteful. But the Steadfast's massive power core could handle loads that would burn out newer designs. On the bridge, Walker and Miller studied the latest data about the Compact's fleet. They had been collecting information during each encounter, watching how the alien ships fought. Their advanced technology had patterns that matched theories from the old Guardian program files. "Look here," Walker pointed to a sensor reading. "Their shields change frequency to match incoming fire. That's why our modern weapons can't hurt them. But the Steadfast's old shield system was built to do something similar." Miller leaned closer. "Our shields can change frequency too. They can do more than that." Walker pulled up his research files. The Guardian program was developing shields that could absorb energy and redirect it. Modern ships abandoned the idea because it used too much power. But we have power to spare. Through the ship's intercom, Robert's voice came from engineering. "Captain, we've finished the shield modifications, ready to test when you are." Walker looked at his crew. They were all watching, waiting. They had followed him this far, trusting that their captain knew what he was doing. Now it was time to prove that trust wasn't misplaced. "Take us to the asteroid field," Walker ordered. They had passed a dense cluster of space rocks on their way to New Haven. It would be perfect for testing their ideas. The Steadfast moved carefully through the asteroid field. Walker had his weapons officer, Jack Thompson, target a medium-sized rock. "Fire one torpedo, low yield." The torpedo shot out, hitting the asteroid. As expected, chunks of rock flew everywhere. But instead of bouncing off the Steadfast's shields, something different happened. The shields glowed brighter than usual, and the energy readings spiked. "Engineering to bridge," Roberts called. "Captain, the shields didn't just block the debris. They absorbed the kinetic energy. The power core is processing it, adding it to our reserves, just like you thought it could." Walker smiled. This was what the Guardian program had been working toward. Shields that didn't just protect, but turned enemy attacks into power. Modern ships couldn't do this because their power cores weren't strong enough. But the Steadfast's inefficient core was perfect for it. They spent the next few hours testing different configurations. Each test showed them something new about their ship's capabilities. The old power core could handle enormous energy loads. The shield system could be tuned to frequencies that modern sensors barely detected. Even the unusual hull design played a part, helping to channel and redirect energy in ways that newer ships couldn't match. "It's like putting together a puzzle," Miller said, watching another successful test. All these old systems that everyone thought were obsolete, They were actually built to work together in ways we're just now understanding. Walker nodded. The Guardian program engineers were ahead of their time. They saw that highly advanced technology might not always be the answer. Sometimes you need systems that are simple but powerful, adaptable instead of efficient. As they worked, more reports came in about the battle at New Haven. Earth's fleet was fighting bravely, but they were losing. The compact ships were too advanced, their weapons too powerful. Modern shields couldn't stop them, and modern weapons couldn't harm them. But Walker saw something in the reports that others had missed. The compact ships were advanced, yes, but they were also predictable. They relied on their technology working in specific ways. They never expected to face something like the Steadfast, something that could turn their own power against them. Ms. Green, Walker called to his sensor officer. Show me the energy patterns from that last test. The display lit up with data. The Steadfast's shields hadn't just absorbed the energy from their tests. They had amplified it. The power core was able to take that energy and make it stronger. Chief Roberts, Walker called engineering. Could we modify the shields to release stored energy in a controlled burst? There was a pause before Roberts answered. Yes, sir. The core can handle it. But the release would be massive, probably enough to overload any normal shield system in range. That was exactly what Walker wanted to hear. Modern shields were carefully tuned, precisely balanced. But the compact used more advanced versions of the same technology. If the Steadfast could overload their shields the same way. One more test, Walker ordered. They set up a series of sensor buoys to simulate enemy ships. The Steadfast's modified shields absorbed energy from small weapons fire, held it, amplified it through the power core, and then released it in a massive burst. The test results were better than Walker had hoped. Sir, Miller said quietly, this could actually work. We could hurt them. Walker looked at his crew. They had all seen the test results. They knew what their ship could do now. But using these abilities in real combat would be dangerous. The power levels they were dealing with could tear the Steadfast apart if anything went wrong. I won't order anyone to stay, Walker told his crew. What we're planning to do goes against every modern naval doctrine. If it fails, we'll lose the ship and probably our lives. Anyone who wants to transfer off before we reach New Haven can do so. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Thompson spoke from his weapons station. Sir, we've all seen what this ship can do. Modern ships are dying out there because they can't adapt. But the Steadfast, she's different. She's special. One by one, other crew members nodded. They had spent months learning their ship's true capabilities. They had seen the test results. They believed in their captain and in their ship. Very well, Walker said. Let's finish the modifications. When we reach New Haven, we'll show everyone why they should have paid more attention to this old ship. The Steadfast continued toward New Haven, its systems humming with more power than they had in years. The ship that everyone thought was too old and weak to fight had become something else, something that could stand against the most advanced fleet in known space. Walker stood at his viewport, watching the stars streak by. Soon, they would face the Compact's fleet. Soon, they would show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways, the forgotten ways, were exactly what you needed to win an impossible fight. The Steadfast dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Haven system. The view on the main screen made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Hundreds of ships filled space around the colony world. The sleek, purple-hulled vessels of the Meridian Compact facing off against Earth's white and gray fleet. Status report, Walker ordered, his voice steady despite the scene before them. Earth fleet is heavily damaged, Lucy Green reported from her sensor station. They've lost 30% of their ships. The Compact's fleet is barely scratched. Their shields are holding against everything we throw at them. Walker watched the battle unfold. Earth's modern ships fought bravely, but their weapons splashed harmlessly against the Compact's advanced shields. When the alien ships fired back, their energy weapons cut through human shields like they weren't even there. Engineering reports all systems ready, Miller said. The power core is running at maximum capacity. Shields are configured according to your specifications. Walker nodded. They had spent the entire journey here preparing for this moment. The steadfast systems were running in ways that would make any modern engineer scream in horror. Power readings that should have blown out their circuits were instead being channeled and controlled by the old ship's overbuilt systems. "Sir," Thompson called from weapons, "Fleet Command is ordering us to stay back. They're saying we're not equipped for this fight." Of course they would say that. Looking at the Steadfast's official specifications, no one would think this old training ship could make a difference. But Walker knew better. His crew knew better. "Send no reply," Walker ordered. "Cut our transmitters. From here on, we work alone." He studied the battle pattern, looking for the right moment to make their move. The compact ships flew in perfect formation, their movements precise and coordinated. That precision would be their weakness. "Take us in," Walker ordered. "Full power to the engines. Plot a course straight through their line." The bridge crew looked at him in surprise, but they obeyed. The Steadfast's engines roared to life, pushing the old ship faster than it had moved in years. On the screen, they could see other human ships trying to warn them off, probably thinking the Steadfast's crew had lost their minds. The first alien ships noticed them coming. Their purple hulls gleamed as they turned to face this new threat. Walker could almost imagine their crews laughing at the sight of an outdated human vessel charging straight at them. "Enemy ships powering weapons," Green reported. "They're targeting us." "Hold course," Walker said calmly. "Wait for my signal." The compact ships opened fire. Their energy weapons, so deadly to modern human vessels, lashed out at the Steadfast. But instead of cutting through their shields, something different happened. The old ship's shields glowed bright blue, absorbing the energy of the attacks. "Power core holding steady," Roberts reported from engineering. "Shield energy levels rising. The absorption is working exactly like we planned." More alien ships joined the attack, probably confused by how this obsolete vessel was surviving their weapons. Each shot they fired just made the Steadfast's shields glow brighter. The power core hummed louder, taking in all that energy and storing it. "Sir," Miller pointed at the tactical display. "We've drawn their attention. 3 of their heavy cruisers are moving to cut us off." "Perfect." The compact ships were reacting exactly as Walker had hoped. They were so confident in their advanced technology that they never considered it might be used against them. "All hands, brace for maneuver," Walker ordered. The Steadfast's engines screamed as Walker ordered a turn that should have been impossible for a ship this size. But the old engines handled it, their excessive power pushing them through. Now they were surrounded. Compact ships on all sides, their weapons still firing. Earth's fleet watched in confusion as this old training vessel drove deeper into the enemy formation, its shields glowing brighter with each hit it took. "Power levels at maximum," Roberts called. "The core can't absorb any more energy. We have to release it now." Walker looked at his tactical display. The Steadfast was right where he wanted it, in the middle of the tightest concentration of enemy ships. Their precise formation, usually a strength, now worked against them. "On my mark," Walker said, his hand hovering over his control panel. He waited 2 more seconds, letting 3 more shots hit their shields. "Now, release all power through the shield grid." The Steadfast shields flared like a newborn star. All the energy they had absorbed, amplified by the massive power core, burst outward in a wave of blue-white fire. The blast caught the nearby compact ships completely by surprise. Their advanced shields, so perfectly tuned and efficient, couldn't handle this crude but overwhelming surge of power. Ship after ship went dark as the energy wave overloaded their systems. The most advanced fleet in known space was being beaten by technology they had considered primitive. "Direct hit on enemy vessels," Thompson reported, his voice filled with amazement. "Their shields are failing. I'm reading multiple hull breaches across their fleet." The Steadfast wasn't finished. Its power core was already building up another charge, drawing energy from the chaos around them. Walker had his ship turned tightly, presenting fresh shield sections to enemy fire, absorbing more energy for their next attack. Earth fleet is responding, Green called out. They're targeting the ships we've damaged. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Finally, the modern ships had targets they could hurt. While the Steadfast absorbed and redirected the Compact's energy weapons, Earth's fleet could attack the weakened enemy vessels. The battle was far from over. The Compact still had many ships, and they were already trying to adjust their tactics. But Walker had shown them something they never expected, that their advanced technology could be beaten by a ship they had thought too weak to matter. Keep us moving, Walker ordered. Don't let them predict our pattern. Every time they hit us, we get stronger. Show them why they should have feared this old ship from the start. The Steadfast moved through space like a dancer, its outdated engines pushing it through maneuvers that looked impossible. Each time the Compact ships fired, the old vessel's shields absorbed their attacks. Each time the shields released their stored energy, more enemy ships went dark. The battle for New Haven had turned. The ship no one had believed in was proving that sometimes the old ways were the best ways, and Walker's crew, who had trusted in their captain and their ship, were showing the galaxy that being underestimated was the greatest advantage of all. The space around New Haven had become a battlefield unlike anything in human history. The Steadfast moved through the chaos like a ghost, its glowing shields absorbing every shot the Compact ships fired. But the old ship was starting to show signs of strain. Hull stress increasing, Roberts reported from engineering. The power core is handling the load, but our structural integrity is at 80% and falling. Walker gripped his chair as another blast rocked the ship. The Compact's fleet had finally realized the true threat the Steadfast posed. Instead of dismissing it as an outdated relic, they now focused their attacks on the one ship that could hurt them. Bring us around for another pass, Walker ordered. Target their command ships this time. The Steadfast turned, its old engines groaning under the strain. The enemy had adapted their tactics, spreading their ships out to minimize the damage when the Steadfast released its stored energy. But Walker had expected this. He had spent years studying warfare, learning how to use his ship's unique abilities in ways no one had imagined. Sir, Green called from her station. New contacts arriving. The Compact is bringing in reinforcements. The tactical display showed more purple dots appearing at the edge of the system. Fresh enemy ships, their crews probably warned about the strange human vessel that could turn their own weapons against them. The Steadfast had bloodied the Compact's nose, but now they were angry. Message from Fleet Command, Miller reported. They're ordering all ships to fall back. They say we can't win against these numbers. Walker studied the battlefield. The Steadfast had given Earth's fleet a fighting chance, but the enemy still outnumbered them. A wise captain would retreat now, save his ship and crew to fight another day. But Walker saw something in the enemy's movements that gave him an idea. Look at their formation, he told Miller, pointing at the display. They're trying to trap us, force us into a position where we can only absorb attacks from one direction. But that means they have to bunch up their ships again. Miller's eyes widened as he understood. They think they've learned how to beat us, but they're actually giving us exactly what we need. Walker nodded. Tell engineering to divert all remaining power to the core. We're going to show them something new. The Steadfast's engines fired, pushing the old ship straight toward the trap the Compact had laid. Enemy ships moved to surround them, their weapons charging. They thought they had figured out the limits of this strange human vessel. Sir, Roberts called from engineering. If we take hits from all sides at once, the power levels will be higher than anything we tested. The core might not be able to handle it. It'll hold, Walker said firmly. This ship was built for moments like this. They just didn't know it yet. The Compact ships opened fire. Energy beams struck the Steadfast from every direction. The shields glowed brighter than ever, absorbing power faster than they had thought possible. The whole ship vibrated as the power core worked to contain the massive energy surge. Hull stress critical, Roberts shouted. Power levels exceeding maximum tested capacity. Walker watched his displays carefully. The steadfast systems were handling more power than should have been possible, but the old ship's overbuilt design was proving its worth. Where modern ships would have failed, the steadfast endured. All hands, Walker called over the ship-wide comm. Prepare for emergency maneuver. Braced for impact. In the next moment, Walker triggered something no one had ever tried before. Instead of releasing the stored energy in a single direction, he ordered the shields to pulse in a rotating pattern. The result was spectacular. The steadfast became the center of an expanding spiral of energy. The blast caught the enemy ships in waves, each pulse timed to hit them as their shields tried to recover from the previous hit. Ships that could have survived one blast fell to repeated hits that came too fast for their systems to handle. Enemy ships losing power across all sectors. Thompson reported. Their formations are breaking up. The Compact's careful trap had become their worst nightmare. Ships collided as they tried to escape the energy storm centered on the steadfast. Others lost power completely, their advanced systems overwhelmed by the crude but overwhelming force being thrown at them. Earth fleet is advancing, Green called out. They're moving to support us. Finally understanding what the steadfast could do, Earth's modern ships pressed the attack. They targeted enemy vessels whose shields had been overloaded, their weapons now effective against the previously invulnerable targets. But the steadfast wasn't finished yet. Even as warning lights flashed across every console and the hull groaned under impossible stresses, Walker had one more card to play. Plot a course for their flagship, he ordered. Everything we have left. One final push. The old ship's engines burned bright as they drove toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The Compact's flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed the steadfast, tried to retreat. But Walker had studied their tactics too well. He knew exactly where they would try to go. Release remaining power on my mark, Walker ordered. Engineering, give us everything the Corps has left. Don't hold anything back. The steadfast closed the distance, taking more hits as it went. Its shields were wavering now, the power core straining to contain the energy being forced into it. But Walker had timed it perfectly. Just as the enemy flagship began its escape maneuver, Walker gave the order. Now. The steadfast released every bit of stored power in a single focused blast. The enemy flagship's shields, already stressed from the previous attacks, couldn't handle the concentrated energy. The massive ship's power grid overloaded, cascading failures spreading across its hull. Enemy flagship is breaking up, Thompson reported, his voice filled with awe. The rest of their fleet. They're retreating. The Compact's remaining ships, seeing their flagship destroyed by a vessel they had dismissed as obsolete, began jumping away from New Haven. The most advanced fleet in known space had been defeated by technology they had considered primitive. Walker looked around his bridge. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Smoke rose from overloaded circuits. The steadfast had pushed itself far beyond its designed limits, but it had survived. It had won. Stand down from battle stations, Walker ordered. Begin damage control procedures. He opened a channel to engineering. Chief Roberts, how's our old girl doing? She's hurt, sir, Roberts replied, pride mixing with concern in her voice. But nothing we can't fix. The core is stable, just needs time to cool down. This old ship saved all our lives today. As the adrenaline of battle faded, messages began pouring in from Earth's fleet. Ships that had once looked down on the steadfast now sent congratulations and praise. The old training vessel had become a legend in a single battle. Walker stood at his viewport, watching Earth's ships move to secure the system. The steadfast's victory would change everything. Military doctrine would be rewritten. The value of old technology would be re-examined. And somewhere, the designers of the Guardian program would know their ideas had finally been proven right. Not bad for an obsolete ship, Miller said, standing beside his captain. Walker smiled, patting the wall of his bridge gently. She was never obsolete. She was just waiting for the right moment to show what she could do. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. We just have to remember how to use them. The Steadfast floated quietly in space, its battle-scarred hull reflecting the light of New Haven's sun. The ship no one had feared had saved humanity's largest colony and destroyed an alien armada, not by being the newest or the most advanced, but by being exactly what it was: a well-built ship with a crew who believed in it, ready to prove that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest advantage of all.